Good morning. Time is 9 o'clock. Welcome to the Santa Rosa County Board of County Commissioners Commission regular meeting. Today's Thursday, September the 25th. We have with us Pastor Doug Holmes from Christian Life Church is going to do the invocation. And then I believe it's Commissioner Williamson's turn for the pledge. Brother Holmes, are you here with us? Yes, sir. Press the right-hand button and make your red light come on.
Did I do it? Let's pray. Loving Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this change of a season and this first new commissioner meeting in this 2014 fall season. We ask today that you be welcome here. Guide us. We desperately need your help. In a broken and hurting world, we need your love and light to shine. May your loving rule, your kingdom come, and your will be done here in us as it is in heaven. Lord, today we thank you for our leaders here and in this privileged country in which we live. Today, may all we do honor you. It's in your strong name, Jesus, that we pray. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we move on, please make sure your cell phones are in silent mode so we don't interrupt each other. Next is approval of the minutes of the August 14th, 2014 and August 28th, 2014 regular meetings, the August 28th, 2014 special meeting, the September 2nd, 2014 MSBU meeting, the September 4th, 2014 budget, and September 16, 2014 final budget hearings. I recommend approval without objection. Hearing none passes. We'll move now to the agenda. Commissioner Williamson, do you have any additions to the?
I have no further items today, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Salton.
No addition, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Cole.
Mr. Chairman, just an information item on the ribbon cutting and opening of a new work camp at the Correctional Institute over on the east side of town.
Okay, sir. Why don't we put that as item 2 under economic development?
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Lynchard.
No changes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Walker.
Mr. Chairman, I had sent an email yesterday requesting that we defer any action on the resolution and the agreement with the Florida PACE funding agency, if you will, from the property appraiser. I wanted to be sure and look at that agreement a little closely and what it meant for him to do, and had asked that we defer that for 2 weeks. And I talked to the PACE folk, the PACE representatives, and then they understand we'll table this, and then they'll be in touch with Mr. Brown and Mr. Nichols too.
Okay.
So,
all right. Now, for those at home and for us up here on the dais, we have just tabled item number 1 on the administrative committee. Okay.
In the second item, Mr. Chairman, I had sent you out a proposal that we had received from Pegasus Engineering, not to exceed $15,000, and that's to help us go through the HMGP grant process. We received our notice of funding availability this morning, and they will help us put together and rank the 23 projects that we currently have from between the 2 cities and the county. I think we've got about $17,000 million worth of projects and $3 million worth of.
Yeah. Which item number is that?
I didn't put it on there. It came in so late. So if I could add to the conclusion of the administrative committee, the proposal from Pegasus Engineering not to exceed $15,000.
Okay. Mr.
No
Andrews?
additions. No additions.
Blaylock, Ms. Bell? Nothing on the right. All right, first off is the Economic Development Committee, Commissioner Salter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have one item and then the add-on by Commissioner Cole. First item is to recommend First Amendment to subordination agreement with Gold Ring Gulf Distribution Company LLC for 35-acre partial in Santa Rosa Industrial Park. We talked about this on Monday. Our attorney's working with them, so at this time I would move approval without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Number
Hearing
two
none,
is,
it passes.
thank you. Number two is the new work camp. Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yesterday, we had a ribbon cutting out at the State Correctional Institute out off of Milton Road, across from our sheriff's office. Warden Comerford was the host out there. There was probably a little over 200 people that attended. Santa Rosa County Chamber was there. Captain Coughlin from NAS Whiting Field, representatives from IFAS, and even the private prison, GEO, had representatives there. Even Secretary of Correctional Institute statewide, Secretary Cruz was there, so it was well attended. Some facts that came out in that really impressed me that probably a lot of folks don't know. That's a $24 million a year salary out there. The majority of people that work there, out of the 700 employees, over 450 are Santa Rosa County residents. There's 3,000 inmates out there at that Correctional Institute. And then with our work camp programs that we're able to take advantage of, both in public works and also the crews that help us out at our landfill, it's a savings to the Santa Rosa County citizens of almost $3 million in labor a year. So those are just some of the facts that came out yesterday during the presentation that Warden Comerford put on. And I just wanted to share those with everybody, and we're certainly glad to have them here between our Correctional Institute there and GEO. There's over 1,200, almost 1,300 employees between the two agencies. So, Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thanks, sir. Next is the Administrative Committee. We've tabled item number 1, so item number 2 is next. Recommend letter of agreement with the Florida Agency for Health Care Administration, ACA, in the amount of $1,304,451 for interlocal transfers and authorize execution of the relevant documents. I recommend approval without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 3 is recommend the 7th Amendment of a lease with HMA Santa Rosa Medical Center, LLC, extending the lease for 5 years for a term including fair market value of $1,425,000 and authorize the execution of the relevant documents. Now I recommend approval without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 4 is discussion of a renewal of franchise agreements with Waste Pro of Florida and Waste Management Incorporated for residential solid waste and recycling collection services through December 2017. Details in the backup. Any questions or discussion from the commissioners? I recommend approval without objection. Excuse me. Yes, ma'am. Come up. Name and address for the...
Sandra Cantu, 9577 Highway 90 East, Milton. It's my understanding that you're going to license 2 big companies to collect the waste and not affect the smaller operators. Is that true?
Yes, ma'am. And what we're doing right here with this one is renewing the agreement that was made 4 years ago with these in the south end of Santa Rosa County. This is not dealing with the north end right now. This is renewing the contracts in the south end.
So it has nothing to do with the small operators?
No, ma'am, it does not. This is the renewal of District 4 and District 5, the Navarre Peninsula.
What percentage of the people in Santa Rosa County are south of the, in the south part of the county?
I don't know what the exact number is. It's around about 30-40% though. About 157,000 people in the county, and there's about 88,000 people, so almost half, a little under half.
A little under half in the south end of the county?
That's a rough number now.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. The other day I asked that if we're going to do this obviously, by just renewing, it's going to save both these companies time and money. It's going to save the county time and money and doing RFP and stuff. I asked if there was a ability in this contract to lock these rates for where they're currently at for 1 year to also save our citizens some money. And I'd like an answer on that before we vote on it. If we have that ability, I'd like to put that caveat on the renewal of these contracts.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Salter.
I've had discussion with our staff on that. What we're talking about basically is 86 cents per quarter. That would be 89 cents per quarter. Each one of these companies are complying with the contract now, so I'd hate to see us go in and try to change a contract just for 89 cents per quarter. So I'm going to support the renewal as presented.
Commissioner Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Cole, I commend you for wanting to save people money because every penny does count, and I commend you for that. I do think at this level that's 80 or 90 cents per quarter. Is that correct?
Cents, 89 cents.
A quarter.
Yeah,
Okay.
per account.
And the way that this rate increase was, that we got this is through the contract and the formula that we came up with when we did the original contract, correctly?
That is correct.
Okay. I would support going with the renewal the way that it is as well. I just wanted to make sure, but the rate increase, it's not that they've come to us with a rate increase. It is through a formula that we put in the contract several years ago.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And it's based on the CPI and the price of fuel and a couple other factors. And our finance major at the end of the table here put that together for us. Commissioner Lyncher built that formula for us. I recommend approval without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 5 is recommend soliciting requests for proposals for lobbying advocacy services for matters before the state of Florida legislature and executive offices. Had a lively discussion about this Monday, and backup is in the book. And I have had interaction with a lot of different interested citizens between Monday and Thursday, and they're completely in favor of this. They understand that although we have a very good relationship with our local delegation, the folks from the South End who run this state don't know us and don't even realize we're here. Yes, ma'am, I know you have a comment, so please come forward.
Sandra Cantu, 9577 Highway 90 East Milton. Yes, I do have a comment. As I stated on Monday, we voted elected men to represent us in the county business. Those of you who are elected by the citizens of Santa Rosa County earn a good pay for that. Now you're telling us that the system doesn't work. You've got to go try to hire somebody to speak for you, for us, somewhere. How you would select those people, I don't know. But if you select somebody to act in our behalf, and you pay them what you said, $60,000 a year, that's not going to be enough for them to make a living. So obviously they're going to work for other people as well. And when it comes down to the needs of Santa Rosa County, and this other group that this group is representing are different from each other, then where is their loyalty going to lie? Certainly not with Santa Rosa County, not necessarily. How do you select the people that are supposed to now represent us in whatever endeavors? How do you select them?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Cantu, I brought up some question about this on Monday because I wanted to see what the other board members felt about it as well. It's going to, when we go through the selective process, if this moves through, we need to, be mindful that we use somebody that maybe has some local connections, somebody that is going to have our best interest in the needs. But I really didn't know what to think Monday coming in about the lobbyist. I know we have one in Washington, and I think it's great that we do. I've dealt with him on some issues with Navarre. He returns phone calls as soon as you call him, if you leave a message. Very good agency is Ed Graber. He does a great job for us. I think having somebody like that at Tallahassee, I talked to some of my friends that are state representatives around the state. It's pretty common practice for counties to do this. We could have somebody that we're doing our job and trying to push things through or to help and make phone calls. The citizens like you are making phone calls, but to have somebody that can really handhold an item, they use the example of a $2 or $3 million like watershed project, say, that a county needed put through. You have somebody that can kind of handhold, that can go to all these committee meetings, that a representative may be on a different committee where he's not able to be there. We're not able to go to Tallahassee and do that. And $2 or $3 million in the state of Florida is not a lot of money. To Santa Rosa County, it is. So I think it would be worth the money for us. At least it's certainly worth us going out to proposal, I think, because we're not saying that we're hiring one or not today. What we're doing is we're putting it out for a proposal to see where the market is and if we want to hire.
So what assurance do you have, though, that if it comes down to it's either this person's desires or this group's desires, how do you know that they're going to represent your
Mr. Chairman,
needs?
if I may.
Yes, sir, please, Commissioner.
Ms. Cantu, the lobbying firm we had in the past, they understood that they could not have a direct conflict of interest with any other county that had a conflict with those funds. They'll have other clients, but it won't be in direct conflict with anything that we're trying to do. And we'll have that discussion with them when we do the RFPs.
But at the same time, I would expect you, if you say that the system isn't working, to do everything that you can to make the system work, not go along with how the system does actually work. That's what bothers me, I think, the most. You're saying, geez, we don't have enough time, or whatever the reason is that you can't figure out what to do, that you've got to pay somebody else to do it for you, rather than trying to work with the representatives, the state representatives that we also elect and pay very well for. You know, work with them to see if the system can't work right.
My final comment would be that you've got to do what your competitors are doing. If not, you're not going to be at the table. So,
I'm sorry, what did you say?
you got to do what your competitors are doing, and our competitors are the other 66 counties in the state of Florida who are going after the same funds that we go after. So we have to make sure we're being competitive, and having a lobbyist, in my mind, is one way to make sure we're being competitive.
If we have to live with it for a few months, I can accept that, but as I said, try to work where the system is going to work the way it's supposed to.
Okay.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for your comments. All right. I recommend approval without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Ms. Cantu's comments are duly noted. Item number 6 is recommend task order Santa Rosa 2014-4 to contract with the Tidal Basin Government Consulting, LLC, for disaster recovery administrative services associated with the April flooding through November 30th, 2014. Details are in the backup. I recommend approval without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 7 is recommend Florida Physical Therapy Association of Northwest Florida sponsor 5K run and walk on Navarre Beach Saturday, March the 28th of 2015, utilizing the option 2 route ending at the Navarre Beach boat ramp parking lot, and that's the one that we discussed that excludes them using the beach the pier during cobia season. I recommend approval without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 6 is recommend Tourist Development Director employment agreement with Ms. Julie Morgan, which will be effective October the 31st, 2014. I recommend approval without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 9 is recommend submission of an application to the Office of Gulf Coast Restoration, U.S. Department of Treasury, for Restore Act Direct Component Grant in the amount of $111,240 for planning assistance. And details are in the backup. I recommend approval without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 10 is recommend renewal of the annual contract with the Florida State University Mosquito Surveillance Program and authorize execution of the relevant documents. And I do so without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 11, the meetings, unless otherwise noted, the meetings below will be held in the boardroom of Santa Rosa County Administrative Center. The list is extensive. This is available to you online, and for those here that would like a paper copy, we'll provide one of those to you at the conclusion of the meeting. I recommend approval without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Item number 12 is an add-on by Mr. Walker.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is the proposal from Pegasus Engineering Services at a cost not to exceed $15,000 to assist as we go through the HMGP process, which we received our funding, notice of funding availability today. I believe the grant deadline is the first week in January. So we've got 23 projects that have been submitted between the two cities, the county, and a couple of individuals have recommended projects. So we need to go through the process of documenting and making sure that we're comparing apples to apples, so that when the LMS committee and then ultimately this board makes its ranking, and then we will make sure that we are picking the best projects to take advantage of those funds.
Okay. Questions from the board? I recommend approval without objection. Hearing none, it passes. That concludes the Administrative Committee. Next up is Engineers Report. Mr. Blaylock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Item 1, we're recommending the construction plans for Boar Cave Cove subdivision. This is a 67-lot subdivision in Working District 1.
Comments or questions? I recommend approval without objection. Hearing none, it passes.
And that concludes the engineer's report.
Next is Public Services Committee, Commissioner Lynchard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 1 is recommend completion of 911 Viper system upgrade for the City of Gulf Breeze PSAP to include MapFlex system at cost of $87,574 and installation of MapFlex system upgrades to PSAP stations at the Sheriff's Office, City of Milton, and Emergency Communications Center at a cost of $37,395, funded by Interagency Community Program or ICP funds. I will move approval without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 2, recommend agreement for services with Intrado, Inc. related to A911 routing and location data management, and authorize execution of relevant documents, and I do so without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 3, recommend flight operations agreement with Lifeguard Ambulance LLC, NWFL, and MedTrans Corporation in the amount of $80,000 each for annual funding of 4 additional dispatch positions at Emergency Communications Center for air transport and related dispatching services, and authorize execution of relevant documents, and I do so without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 4, recommend appointment of the following members of the recently combined Building Code Board of Adjustments and Appeals: Gary Mooneyham for a 2-year term, Pete Sutherland for a 2-year term, Mark Cotton for a 2-year term, George Jernigan for a 2-year term, Stephen Reyes for a 3-year term, Sam Vickers for a 3-year term, and William Main Jr. for a 3-year term, and I do so without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 5, recommend Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, DEO, Bureau of Community Planning in the amount of $25,000 for development of bicycle and pedestrian master plan, and also recommend agreement with West Florida Planning Council, Inc. for development of this plan and authorize execution of relevant documents, and I do so without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 6, recommend amended interlocal agreement with Escambia County allowing submission of Federal Section 5309 Veterans Transportation and Community Living Initiative grant application, and authorize execution of relevant documents, and I do so without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 7, recommend rejection of bids received for the SHIP Substantial Rehabilitation Project located at 5332 Conecuh Street as exceeding program maximum limit, and direct staff to develop alternative strategies for the homeowner. We discussed this on Monday. Unless there are any questions, comments, I will move this without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 8, recommend acceptance of $1,000 as satisfaction of SHIP loan in the amount of $3,430.09 so that the property can be sold, and do so without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
And item 9, recommend annual interlocal agreement with Escambia County enabling participation in the 2014 Escambia Consortium Home Program Grant, and I do so without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
And that concludes Public Services, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Public Works Committee, Commissioner Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 5 items today. Number 1, recommend annual contract renewal with amendments for WS 892 with Florida Department of Corrections for 1 inmate work squad assigned to the Parks Department. I'd like to move approval without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item number 2, recommend scheduling public hearing on proposed vacation of unnamed right-of-way between lots 1 through 6 and lots 7 and 10, block 641 in the Avalon Beach subdivision, contingent upon conveyance of a blanket drainage easement to the county on the vacated area. I'd like to move approval without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Number 3, recommend 1-year extension of agreement for uniform services with the UniFirst Corporation under existing terms. I'd like to move approval without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Number 4, recommend providing letter to the FDOT consultant consenting to the closure of the access road to Coldwater Creek during future construction to 4-lane SR 87. I'd like to move approval without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Recommend change order number 1 in the amount of $87,205 to the contract with Pneumatic Concrete Company, Inc. for an additional 163 linear feet of structural pile jackets at the contract unit price for Munson Highway Bridge Rehabilitation FDOT/SCOP funded project. I'd like to move approval without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
That concludes the Public Works Committee, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Next is Budget and Financial Management Committee, Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 1 is recommend budget amendment 2014-172 in the amount of $25,000 reimbursing capital fund for property purchased adjacent to Sheriff's Substation in Navarre as approved at the April 14th, at the regular meeting in 2013, November 14th, 2013, regular meeting, and I do so without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 2 is recommend budget amendment 2014-173 in the amount of $15,000, supplemental funding of First Judicial Circuit Medical Examiner's Office. I move that without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 3 is recommend budget amendment 2014-174 in the amount of $47,971 to transfer funds from the reserve contingencies to the Board of County Commissioners computer support for network switches, cable, and cable cards for Computer Support Department as approved at the September 11th, 2014 Board of County Commissioners regular meeting. I do so without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 4 is recommend budget amendment 2014-175 in the amount of $12,994 for the design of the Pace Tennis Complex from District 1 and District 3 project funds as approved at the June 13th, 2013 Board of County Commissioner regular meeting. I do so without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Item 5 is recommend budget amendment 2014-176 in the amount of $620,000 carrying forward funds to the disaster fund for expenditures associated with April flooding pending federal and state reimbursement, and I do so without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
And the final item is the recommended county expenditure and check register, which I'll sign off and have to you, and I move that without objection.
Hearing none, it passes.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes this report.
Thank you, Commissioner Cole. County Administrator? County Attorney?
No items.
Public Forum. Anybody to bring something before this board before we adjourn?
Wilbert Courtney, 4641 Geiger Road, Milton, Florida. I'd like to ask a question about Public Service Committee. Commissioner Lynchard went over number 1 of the completion of the 9/11 Viper system. Being we're getting more inmates in East Milton, does the rest of the community have this, or is this just for Gulf Breeze?
This is excuse me, this is upgrading, Mr. Courtney, this is upgrading the dispatching center in the city of Gulf Breeze. We have a dispatching center or public service, something position in the city of Gulf Breeze Police Department, city of Milton Police Department, the sheriff's office, and there's the one at the Emergency Communication Center, which is our 911 dispatch at the EOC. These are you just upgrading the computers and the software for the computer-aided dispatch portion. This is just the dispatcher sending the officers in the particular jurisdiction. Doesn't have to do it. It's not a service. They're all been upgraded. This was the last one to upgrade.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Sandra Cantu, 9577 Highway 90 East, Milton. My question is about the criteria for who is selected to give the invocation.
We have a rotating roster of pastors in the area, and we work, everybody takes a turn.
I've asked to be placed on that list.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Cole.
Several weeks ago, Ms. Cantu asked me about that, and I've got to speak to Emily about that and get you on there. I don't think we have any precedence that a person or is an ordained pastor.
Are you an ordained pastor?
I beg your pardon?
Are you an ordained?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
But I would like to be put on your list of invocation.
Okay. Unless we have a rule regulation against that, which I don't understand why we would.
We'll refer that to the county administrator, and he'll inform us.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else come before the board? Mr. Young?
Jim Young, 5049 Basin Avenue. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. This is not an agenda item, but it's kind of in the format of comments and questions. And I've attended the first two town hall meetings, and this is kind of in the form of a report and some things that I observed that might help the ones going forward. Very similar questions have come up. Number one, I think there needs to be added to the presentation just an emphasis on who HOK is, what their role was played, why they were retained, what status they hold in that industry. People are asking me, who is HOK? And I think I think Lane's next presentation, town hall meeting, and I think if you spend a couple of minutes on that as a qualifier on their expertise, and they're the biggest and they're the largest, and that's what they do, and their expertise in this type of project. I'd also like to see, when we're talking about it kind of tangents off the introduction of and a recognition of who HOK is, the conversations of trying to get the facts out. I believe for ease, the Bible needs to be within the four corners of the documents that HOK has presented. The conversations get off in tangents. Not that those, people have the right to say what they'd like to say, but, as an example, parking has been, on downtown Milton has been discussed at both meetings. And there's all kind of information being flailed around. Well, if the conversation stays within the four corners of all the documents that you have with HOK, if that's what you're using for the basis of what factual information you have, I tried to, at the last meeting, separate the the issue of adequacy of parking versus on-site parking, and the point I was driving at is from the August 11th meeting of HOK's presentation,
they presented some probable cost numbers as kind of final numbers, taking in what I call the 4 buckets of cost: land cost, site construction cost, building cost, FF&E, and fees. And so you add those numbers up, you come up with the numbers that they have that are well presented. So the simple, people are looking at those costs, which is their consideration. And when they're asking about, and some of them take it personally, that there's only 225 parking spaces on the HOK design for downtown Milton. Well, to me, the simple answer is, and this is where HOK you may want to ask HOK these questions. The simple answer to that is, on a 7.1 acre site, after you put trying to do an apples for apples, after putting the same type of building on all 3 locations, and then the infrastructure required for that, holding ponds, so forth and so on, all that was left was 225 spaces for on-site parking. I mean, that's the answer, you know? Not is there adequacy of parking within 2 or 3 football fields of the existing facility or that site. I also had some questions about, and the questions have been brought to me by other citizens, is these 4 or 5, and I don't know what the correct number is, but in downtown Milton, the 4 or 5 required parcels, required being defined as within that 7.1 acre site, that have to be acquired. My question to the board today is, whose responsibility is that to deliver those 4 or 5 parcels? Is it a city's responsibility, or is it Santa Rosa County's responsibility to deliver those to the public? If you don't have an answer, I think the answer you need to get the answer. Okay?
The answer, the responsibility is going to be the Board of Commissioners. Now how the city works into that, but the Board of Commissioners is going to be responsible for all of it.
Since it's a county project, my assumption would be that void that exists today, and when I say void, you have no way of delivering that to the citizens today. Okay? I'm uncomfortable with that. And any comments you want to make on that, you're welcome to make.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, but now we need to wrap this up. We're running up about 5 minutes so far. Mr. Cole, go right ahead.
Well, yeah, it's good discussion, I believe, because as we've done on the other parcels, East Partial, we have a letter from Cotton Byram saying he would donate 15 acres. On the West Partial, we have a contract in place that's refundable if we don't use that. But we're speculating on 5 pieces of property downtown that we have absolutely no contractual agreement on at this point. And if downtown were to be selected, when do we engage in that and get that? What if it's selected and 1 out of the 5 or 2 out of the 5 say absolutely not? You know, we're not willing to sell. And how long could it be drug on if we don't have that in place beforehand? So,
You know, that's
that's a good point,
and I apologize for the time I'm taking. I sent you an email yesterday.
Yeah, and I think we all read it. At least I read it.
Yeah, and the other questions I have in here, there again, trying to work within the 4 corners of the HOK document. And my goal has always been, how do we interpret that and try to ask the correct questions of HOK, getting additional information so that we can get it as apples and apples as we possibly can. You know, because I think that's what the citizens' perception is anyway. And there's some allocations of purchase price in here that, if you've read my email, you know, there's some questions that I think if Lane has time between now and Tuesday to ask HOK, they won't respond to me, and rightfully so. I'm not their client.
And rightly so.
And rightfully so, and I understand that. So,
I mean, what's HOK going, going to respond to. I mean, the board, the sites are what the sites are, the cost of what the costs are, and granted, we understand what we did with the property. The board chose to do that. I mean,
All right, there are some questions that I think are pertinent to HOK, and there's some questions that are pertinent to the county. And you got the same email, Hunter, I addressed it originally to you, and, I just got some, some questions. If Cotton Barham is, by letter of intent, is graciously providing 15 acres of land, and HOK's site says it's 18 acres of land, where's the other 3 acres coming from? Is Cotton going to donate that? He very well might be, but it's just a question I got, I mean, I think my questions are very, very reasonable questions.
Yeah, they are.
And,
I do have an answer for that one. I've met with Mr. Byram, and the 15 acre is the donation for the judicial center. The 3 acres is a retention pond that would be designed and built to benefit not just that property, but the remaining property that Mr. Byram's going to retain, and whether he would give us an easement over there for drainage or transfer fee simple is something that might go down the road, but it's going to be to his benefit to have those ponds in place, and they're going to be in addition to the 15 acres.
that's a perfect answer. I understand it fully, but I didn't have an answer to the question.
Well, and that was actually contained.
And the road, too.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, well, if you refer to my email,
Right.
I would like to get some answers on those, and looking forward to the next town hall meeting.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Carson, I'm sorry.
I got one other
behind.
comment. I'm
Yes,
over
sir.
time. I want to applaud the county commission on the consideration and serious consideration of hiring a lobbyist. Because the system that we're in today, we may want to change it over the next 2 decades, but it's like going to a gunfight with a knife.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So you got to have your man. It's no different than hiring a professional engineer or some other professional to represent this county. I support that 100%.
Well said. Yes, Mr. Carson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ed Carson, 6705 Shady Hollow Drive. To Jim's point, in my world, unless you have control of a site, you've got no project. That's the absolute first thing you've got to do before you really get serious about contemplating a development. So I just throw that out. The second point that I'd like to make, or just FYI, is the white paper that I've spoken to y'all about before is complete. It should be available from Santa Rosa County Chamber, and it'll have commentary on all 3 sites, as well as if we do nothing, this is what you should expect. So I look forward to y'all taking a look at it. I look forward to the citizens of Santa Rosa County looking at it. Hopefully we can get everybody educated and get this done this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Anybody else have anything to bring before the
Mr.
board?
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Seeing how this has come to our attention by 2 citizens now and I'm speaking strictly about the 5 parcels that are needed but questionable at this point in time, would it be incumbent upon us to direct the county attorney to try to establish communication, if he hasn't already, with these 5 parcel owners and perhaps get a contract in place that would reflect the contract we have? In other words, if we end up not building downtown, then any earnest money, anything like that goes away. I mean, it's just throwing that out there as a question, because as was stated, here we are planning, if that passes and succeeds, that it stays downtown, now we're going to be scrambling for, okay, who's going to sell, who's not going to sell, how long are they going to drag it through court to get a higher price, all the different things. So just a question for the board. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I agree with Commissioner Cole. I think it's not very professional for us to possibly put something on a ballot that we have not, having some kind of contingency contract on that land. If the people chose the downtown site and 1 or 2 of those landowners said, we're not going to sell, what do we do now? And I know people don't want to talk about eminent domain, but I just say, I'd like to have all that cleared up before people start voting on it.
And it's no different than building a road, and nobody likes to hear eminent domain, but that's what the law provides. If the governmental structure needs something, then that's the last resort. Hopefully, something can be worked out.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion at this time that we direct county attorney to enter those conversations and come back to us with a report as to where we can go with that. I do so without objection.
Do so without objection. Discussion from the board? Yes, sir, Commissioner Williamson.
Mr. Attorney, I mean, haven't you have already reached out to some extent?
Ms. Jones, before my tenure, had communicated and had gotten indications from, I think, everybody but the CSX Railroad that they would be willing to sell. I don't think it went any further as far as the amount that they want to sell for and the terms of the sale. But the indication was that those 4 landowners were willing. The CSX Railroad, having dealt with them, the city of Milton looked at that property. They've just got a very obstinate bureaucracy, let's say. They don't really respond unless they feel like they want to respond, and they have not been responsive in the past. I'm looking at my prior communication with them, and I'm going to start that process again at the commission's direction. But there's a lot of inertia in that.
Yeah.
In that organization.
I'll share a point of contact with you when we finish up. Commissioner Cole.
Mr. Chairman, the problem being, and there may be a will there, but if we go ahead and get a price established and a contract, and even if we have to put earnest money on it, that is certainly refundable if we don't move down there, just like the west side property, it's easy to say, yeah, I'll sell and not give a price, and then once that selection perhaps is made by the citizens to build down there, the price is going to double, I'm sure. So.
Yeah. So we have a motion without objection. Hearing none, it passes. Mr. Andrews, if you would begin that conversation.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Yes, ma'am, come forward.
Sandra Cantu, 9577 Highway 90 East, Milton. It was asked at another meeting about using eminent domain to take whatever property is necessary that people wouldn't sell, and we were assured that that was not going to be done. I believe that the citizens of Santa Rosa County should know if there's a possibility of using eminent domain, then that should be up front. Also, the cost of getting that property should be in the price of that site, and that's not been done. So if you're going to be using eminent domain, or that's a possibility, then you need to advise the voters of Santa Rosa County that that's true. I know I wouldn't want my property taken.
Right. I don't know if you followed the discussion up here just
Yes.
a few minutes ago, but the four of the 5 property owners are amenable to discussions about price. The 5th is CSX Railroad, and they're a totally different animal, and it's totally different situation.
But again, selling and buying property is something that has to be on paper.
Absolutely, and I agree completely that price needs to be in the mix.
Thank you.
I could not agree more.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Anybody else have anything to bring before the board? Seeing none, hearing none, we are adjourned.